Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Cramer. Our guest today is Jonathan J. We're going to talk about buying a business. 48 businesses? No, 48 businesses.
Yeah, well, I bought 48 during the pandemic. And when people ask me, Jonathan, what's your best advice about buying 48 businesses during a pandemic? I say, don't buy 48 businesses during a pandemic. Actually, acquisition number 48 landed me in hospital. So I lived to tell the tale, but the work-life balance got a little bit out of kilter and the stress got to me. And it got a little bit serious for a time there.
well, I would be willing to bet, and I'm not a betting person, that there is a tremendous amount of value and opportunity to acquiring businesses, or you would not be doing it. So let's
Yeah.
let's start by talking a little bit about what you're doing with your business so that our listeners get a sense of who you are, what you do. You're obviously you're very seasoned at this and you are the go-to expert. So let's start there.
Yeah, sure. So I fell into the whole M&A mergers and acquisitions business in 1999. And I sold my publishing business and made more money the day I sold it than I'd made in the previous 2.5 years of turning up to the office every day. So that was a bit of an eye-opener. And then a few years later, I bought a competitor, combined it with another business that I'd started, put the two together, and then sold that in a private equity deal that was pretty life changing. And I had the opportunity to retire or semi-retire. That lasted about 6 weeks, and then I was back at it again. And I bought a group of businesses from a private equity firm in this situation that were distressed, and a distressed business is a business that's losing money. And I bought these businesses for $1, and 11 months later I sold that business to someone else for just under $2 million. And then people said to me, how did you do it? I mean, it's a pretty good question to ask anyone who's been through that experience. So I got together a group of people and I ran a little training session on how to do it. And then more people came and more people came. And before I knew it, I had a training company showing other people how to buy businesses, and not just the exciting part and how much money you could make, which is okay, but also how to do it properly so you don't make mistakes. Because I have made so many mistakes, and I've made all the mistakes so that you don't have to.
So when people start hearing big numbers, they tend to get a little excited. We know that there is an entire industry. You look at the real estate industry, and I'm referring to kind of like the flippers, right? You've got
Okay.
these big seminars, and you bring everybody in, and you're teaching them how to purchase this inexpensive real estate and flip it for a big profit. And you've got a whole bunch of people who are so intrigued by this proposition of creating quick wealth. But now we're talking to business owners that have, in many cases, many of our listeners, they've been at this for a while. So they know business is not all rainbows and butterflies. It's
Absolutely.
not a quick, get rich quick thing. And so although there is that allure of being able to make a whole bunch of money by acquiring and merging other businesses, let's talk about it in that sort of pragmatic way, because the
Yeah.
profitability is there if it's done correctly. What does it really take?
Well, I think so many people come to me for advice because the advice I give is grounded in experience, and it isn't all you are going to be a millionaire, this time next year. We'd love that to be the case, but the reality is it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of effort. But if you start a business from scratch, it can take you years to to get the product and the service right, to get the pricing right, to get the marketing right, to get the staff right, to get the logo right, the website right. And then most businesses that start from scratch don't survive those first 5 years, compared to buying a business that's been going for at least 5 years, that already has the marketing, the staff, the products, the services, pricing, makes a solid profit every month. Now, if we can buy that business, that solid profit every month becomes our solid profit every month. And most of the people that I work with start their deal making with smaller businesses and build their confidence over time. And I encourage people to think big, but also to be realistic based upon their knowledge, their skills, their experience. So someone who's been in business for a long time can absolutely go into a multi-million-dollar transaction because they've got experience under their belt, and I can show them the techniques to fund it and to find those off-market deals and structure the deals. Someone who's new to business, then I would say aim a little lower for your first deal, build up your experience, and when you've got the experience and you've got the confidence, then go for the bigger deals. And I've bought businesses that I've regretted buying. I mean, I bought 48 pretty fast in 2.5 years, and a handful of those I wish I hadn't bought. So even though I've been doing it a long time, I still don't get it right all the time.
So let's talk a little bit about your journey and what you learned, because we started off this interview with a little teaser, if you want to call it that, about your health crisis. What happened to you? You had your foot maybe a little too firmly on the accelerator. Right? So you, and this is the value of speaking with people with real experience and learning from mentors that have truly been there, done that, and are willing to say, yeah, don't do that because I did that and it didn't work out so good. And I want to speak to that a little bit, because a lot of times when we're marketing our businesses, we're using all of the typical strategies and tactics, the psychology that we know work, right? We're selling the dream, we're making big, bold promises, or we are sort of attacking people's deepest, fear and pain point and promising, that we can solve that. Let's talk a little bit about the real hard knocks lessons in this, so that someone who is listening to this, who's saying, this actually really does feel like a logical next step to achieving my professional and financial goals, what is some of that wisdom that you can share with us about this journey?
Sure. So the pandemic created a situation where people who were thinking of retiring in the next few years accelerated those plans. So there was suddenly a lot of business owners who said, I don't want all this stress. I don't know what's going to happen, if there's going to be another lockdown. I don't know what's going to happen. There was so much uncertainty. So there were many business owners who thought now is the right time to sell. Interestingly, there were people who buy businesses, private equity firms, stopped acquiring. They stopped buying because they are also very cautious. And entrepreneurially minded business buyers, like the people I know, thought, well, something, if someone wants to sell and there's no one else buying, I might as well go and be the buyer myself. So I started buying these businesses right at the beginning of the pandemic, so April 2020. And there were so many opportunities. I actually looked at 500 and narrowed it down to less than 50. And it was quite addictive in a way, in that there were so many opportunities. Even though I was saying no to most of them, I could have done double the number of deals. But I wasn't building an infrastructure to support, to manage those businesses. and I didn't have a sufficiently strong management team. And as a result, too much landed on my desk. And that starts to build up. Now, I am actually not a particularly good business operator. I'm a far better at buying businesses and selling businesses than I am the bit in the middle. But the bit in the middle is really important. So because I didn't have this management team, all those bits in the middle were coming to me. And I started getting stomach pains that I ignored at first. And you put it down to something that you've eaten, or just bad luck that day of having a stomach ache. But it got worse and worse and worse till I couldn't stand up straight. It was lasting all night, and I was awake all night because the pains were just so severe, and I was trying to find that comfortable position. I was Googling it, and it wasn't appendicitis because it was in the wrong place. And I was trying to figure out and eventually I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, we need to get you into hospital for a colonoscopy, which is not the most pleasant experience, but they were looking for something serious because that's what everyone thought it was. And they couldn't find anything. And they said, so it's stress. this is a physical reaction to the mental stress that you've been under. And I went to a hypnotherapist because I was having trouble sleeping. And the hypnotherapist said, have you thought of psychotherapy? Now, in the UK, we don't talk about psychotherapy very much. And I hadn't thought about it. And she said, well, let's stay here for a bit. Let's talk. And I came out of that session feeling so much better. And I thought, I love this. I need to do this again. So the conclusion I reached with the psychotherapist was that this business was now starting to harm me. And that is not why you get into business. And I have a daughter who's nearly 7, and she brought her spelling test home from school. And one of the spellings was unhappiness. No, sorry, unhappy. And she read out her spellings and she came to unhappy, and she looked at me and she said, that's you. Now that was, I didn't know what to say. I was speechless. The next day I said to her, why do you think I'm unhappy? What makes me unhappy? And she said, work. And then I realized I was a terrible role model, because that's not what you want. You don't want children to associate work with unhappiness. And then I looked for an exit, and I exited the business just a few months later. So that's in a nutshell. That's what I learned from doing 48 deals in 2.5 years.
See, now this is why I do the work that I do, because we know that how we are feeling in our business, in our lives, it does influence and affect our physical well-being. It influences and affects our family, whether or not we are being a good mother or father, a good spouse. It affects our businesses. And for many of us, as the business owner, we are influencing and affecting our employees. We are influencing and affecting our clients and customers. And when it comes right down to it, so many people forget that the reason that they want the quote success is because they believe it will make them happy. And what a lot of people don't realize is, if you're miserable and unhappy in the pursuit of the thing that you think is going to make you happy, once you get it, it rarely ever gives you any sustainable, lasting happiness. And so it is that willingness to challenge some of those motivations that are driving us, and to get ourselves in the right mindset, to get our motivations, I like to say heart-centered, right, in the right, coming from the right place, so that you can enjoy your family and your business and the financial success that you're creating for yourself and all of the stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So my training sessions that I do with business owners and entrepreneurs have shifted a little in emphasis. And I probably didn't talk enough about work-life balance. It was really just business, business, business. And now I really focus on showing people how to get that balance right and to have the right team around you so that all the stress isn't on your shoulders, and how to set up your acquisitions correctly so that you aren't involved in the day to day, because it's the day to day that's the killer. It really is. And I'm not a good manager of people. You know, in that group of businesses, I had 375 staff. Oh my goodness, that is just not my skill set at all. So everything that I do now is more balanced. And I've got to say, the feedback from my clients is that this is what they didn't realize, that's what they wanted, but now they've got it, they realize that's what they wanted.
It's true, right? Because we're all sort of reaching for, again, what we think is going to be the thing that's going to make us feel successful, happy, accomplished, fulfilled, whatever. And that important component is often missing from the equation. And a lot of people that I've worked with over the years and colleagues, they find out the long, hard way once they've sort of achieved a level of success for themselves, or they've achieved a certain level of status for themselves. It's like, holy shit, you know what? You know, something's missing here, something's off. And when we can build that into the foundation as we're growing, life is a whole lot better.
Yes, it is. And you've got to remember why you're in business in the first place. It's to create options and freedom. And quite often business just creates a hamster wheel. You know, we have this saying, you know, you're in a hamster wheel and you keep on pedaling, but you don't actually get anywhere. And yeah, we've got to remember that the business is there to serve us. We're not there to serve the business. And you know, if you have children, you're never going to get that time back. So it's yeah, it's such an important, for me, you know, everything I do is for my daughter. And you know, that gives me a focus where you know, playing ball with her is as important as doing a client call.
I love that. So now I want to shift gears just a little bit because you shared with us what you went through physically to sort of have this aha about your own work life balance. But one of the things that I love to get into with my guests is a little bit more about the mindset side of growth, because we have a tendency to encounter our fears, our doubts, our insecurities, our self-imposed limiting beliefs as we are growing and expanding ourselves into sort of new levels, we could say. And
Mhm.
so I'm curious if there is a mindset challenge that you've personally had to overcome in your business on your journey to getting to where you are today that you'd be willing to share with us.
Yes. So I've always been very interested in personal development. In fact, the magazine business that I sold back in 1999, one of the titles of that publishing company was a personal development magazine. And you know, remember, this was, you know, 24 years ago. I was interviewing people like Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, and getting a lot out of those interviews myself, as well as getting content for the publication. So I'm a big believer in personal development. I started a coaching business also in 1999 after I'd sold the magazines that taught people life coaching skills, and this was fairly new in the UK, over 20 years ago. And so I've worked with hundreds, thousands of people over the years, and I've seen the one thing that separates those from those who get where they want to go from those who don't, as not education, not where they live, not particularly skills, sometimes not even knowledge, it's attitude. And the people who move towards their goals faster are the people who have the self-belief to make them action orientated. The people who don't have the self-belief tend to procrastinate. And you need to take action to move forward. Otherwise, you're in a holding pattern, and you're every year of your life is the same. So for me, it was watching so many other people, seeing them hold themselves back by not believing in themselves. And that self-belief is very fragile, but if you nurture it, and I think it should be nurtured in children, if you nurture that self-belief, then it becomes the core of everything that they do. And if it stays fragile, then I think that's when people hold themselves back.
Absolutely. That was so good, Jonathan. See, now I told you that it was going to be hard for me to wrap up this interview because there was going to be so much that I was going to want to talk to you about. And I would love to go down that rabbit hole, but I know we don't have time. So, what I'm going to encourage our audience to do is to connect with you, to follow you, to see what you're doing in your business, to learn from you. You are such a wealth of knowledge. You have so much experience. I'm always so grateful for the people that I get to interview on this podcast because I'm always learning and growing, and individuals like yourself always inspire me. So, how can our listeners connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm only on one social media platform, which is LinkedIn. So find me on LinkedIn, send me a LinkedIn request, and I'd happily give anyone any free help and advice about business buying. Any advice you want, I'll help you. And you can find our website as well, which is dealmakers.co.uk. And I've got a YouTube channel, Jonathan J YouTube, over 160 videos all about buying business. And also you can see behind the scenes of those 48 businesses that I bought during the pandemic. There's about 12 videos all behind the scenes of that business buying journey.
Ooh, see, that sounds fun. So some material for people to absorb over these cold winter months when you're hibernating in your pajamas, right?
Absolutely.
I want to thank you so much, Jonathan, for being with us and sharing all of your knowledge, all of your challenges and wisdom. So I do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you to all of our listeners. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.